So we have Friend Create, which is the IDE, right? The integrated development environment. And let's see. So basically, what I'm doing is that I basically, this is the dormant technology that we're talking about. So basically, I've started Friend Create. It starts a virtual disk. And so I'm going into the shell, and I'm going into the disk and into the functions directory, and I'm executing one of its functions with some arguments. So that way, insert some text, and then it says some text. So I could do some other thing. I could go, for example, file new, and then it will make a new file. So the idea is that you're taking an application. And by the way, just for the Amiga stuff here, this is how we do RX-like stuff. So basically, instead of opening a message port, you're just mounting the application as a network share. And then they're just running the functions which have become now virtual executables, and they take arguments, and then suddenly you can do much more powerful stuff. You can, for example, share a directory in the app over the network, and then somebody else might be using that part of your client-side JavaScript application as a library. And then there happen some weird things. Another thing that we're doing is, so actually every disk can have a library. It can have virtual executables, and of course different data objects of different file types. So for example, you can quickly then abstract a website to become a disk, and then you can access its content without having layout. So you can make your own layout. For example, you can make your own CNN app or whatever using the system. Also, you can that way publish applications over the network that are fully self-contained. So you just mount an application, which could be hosted like this. So let's say if I would share Friend Create here. It's a stupid example, but I would share this over the network, and you would mount it, and you would have some functions to manipulate text, for example. But it could also be an entire application. So for example, you could just share a folder with the executables on it that would be using its libraries for all the functionality, graphics, music, sounds, whatever. And so the only thing I do, I mount it over the network, I run the executable, and I get the full application. When I'm done with it, I just unmount it. And you have no idea what's giving you the resources. And this is a really interesting thing. So because now you guys familiar with the Tor network? So they use onion routing, which makes it difficult to see the source, the provider, and it makes it difficult to see the user, right? So what we're doing is that we're using something we're calling a remote drive, or remote FS. So in Friend, we have, let me see, if I go in the system, we have a couple of DOS drivers here. Let me see, you can just open it here a little bit. So we have Arena CM, which is a content management system being abstracted as a disk. That means I can drag and drop an HTML file onto the CMS, and then I can publish it on a website. We're also working on that for WordPress. So that WordPress is a disk. So then I can take content from Arena CM and drag and drop to WordPress. And then I can use our scripting language to batch process between the two systems. So now meta-programming with two CMS systems. You have the assign DOS driver, which was an implemented feature in Amiga OS, but now it's a DOS driver, which means that when you're using the assign command, it's actually mounting several other systems. So it becomes a bit more dynamic, because then you can start inheriting from the assign DOS driver and make a new DOS driver that uses its functions, and then you can start manipulating. Dropbox drive, everybody would immediately understand what that does. Friend store drive is so that when you upload your applications to the Friend store, it's basically a disk. So it's like Aminet on the Amiga OS. So basically, a place where you can leech and push data. In RAM, it's our RAM drive. We had to have one, and so the first prototype showed one and didn't do anything, and then we removed it because we thought, why would you need a RAM drive if your computer was the internet? And then we realized that, well, if you use the memory of the servers on the internet, then that could be the RAM drive. And then why would you use that? Well, if you have shared applications, that you have an application, you have an application, you have an application, and it's been drawn on my screen, and it's been drawn on your screen, because it's HTML5, so it's rendering on each client computer, you have to save its state somewhere. So we're saving the state of the application in the RAM of the server so that all the input events are sent around, and then it's locked with these server variables, and it can also you can also use fragments of your applications there. So you won't be able to store more than 5 megabytes in this, or we go out of RAM. Local drive lets you use the Linux file systems at mount points. So you just add the path, and then you can add your servers. And then we have the SQL drive, which abstracts a MySQL database. SQL workgroup drive, which is basically the same thing, only that it allows you to work in workgroups. TreeRoot is actually like a social networking system that is a bit like Skype, like Facebook. And we abstract that so you can use it as a data mine.
That's our own product.
So basically everything you do in that social network, you can then kind of access it through libraries and stuff and build apps on top of it. So you see, in the Friend universe, you have an app that is used in another app, which is used in another app. And it's just stacked upwards, and you don't know how the complexity will look like on the top. That's why I told Arne in the beginning that we were working on a fractal operating system, and we had to move a bit from there.